Welcome to Tech in the Car. I'm Oliver. I'm here in Santa Monica. This is a new Mercedes 2022 EQS, and this car is from Midway Car Rentals. A big thank you to them for lending me that for this video. What Mercedes decided to do was, instead of just adding electric power to the S-Class, was actually to create a new platform for their first electric S-Class, and they got this, the EQS. The EQS in this form, and this is a 450 plus, has 333 horsepower, although there is an AMG version with over 600 horsepower. And this car has a range of 453 miles, over 700 kilometers. So this is way up there. Not quite as much as the Lucid Air, which I also did a video on.
You see, it's so slippery, it's basically like a fish cutting through the road. In fact, it has a drag coefficient of 0.2. Which makes it the car with the lowest drag coefficient ever. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
They both have the same drag of 0.21, which makes them the slipperiest electric cars there are, slipperiest of all cars actually. But the design philosophy is very, very different for both of these cars, whereas the Lucid looks much more sporty and is lower and has the same amount of space as an S-Class in the back. The EQS is a lot fatter, thicker looking, and generally just not very well proportioned in my opinion. Now that doesn't take away from the amazing technology in this car, which we'll talk about in a second, and the fact it's got fantastic range, but I don't like the design of this car. It doesn't quite look as good as it could. And it starts at around £100,000. So it's definitely a very expensive car. So it's looking at a different market, but still an interesting comparison because they're similarly priced depending on the trim level, and they've got the same drag coefficient, and they've got similar ranges as well. So let's look at the design in a bit more detail now. So I talked about the range of this car, over 450 miles for this 330 horsepower version. But what about the battery size? Well, there's actually a 107.8 kilowatt hour battery in here, which is one of the biggest there is. Again, not as big as a Lucid. So we got a really long bonnet here. We talk about design, we got a really long bonnet here. Is there a frunk under here? But there's no frunk, so there's no space for you to store anything at the front here. You know, like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Obviously, there's a ton of space in the back, and this is actually a hatchback. Looking at the front here, we've got a flat Mercedes star and flat grille. There's like no actual design here other than these printed stars, which is very interesting. We've got these vents which look, well, they're not real vents first of all, but they look like real vents. They're very reminiscent of the E-Class actually, and then it's all chromed here. This has also got a light bar across the front here which lights up at night, which makes it have a very distinct look. So that's the front design. Obviously this car's got a sunroof as well, panoramic sunroof, and it's got all the latest driver assistance technology. There's 2 cameras at the top here, just like you would have seen on the Lucid, which had 3 cameras at the top. The side of this car very much shows that there's a lot of space here. We've got door handles which pop out and open, obviously. And at the back here, it's exactly the same. We've got quite wide arches, actually. We've got large wheels as well. These are aerodynamic wheels, so they're actually covered, so the air obviously moves over the outside and doesn't end up causing any drag. And overall, it's just, you know, I don't like the design of this car. Don't get me wrong, I love the technology that Mercedes have put into this car. I just don't think it looks very good. But the design very, very much belies the fact this is a hatchback. It maybe doesn't look like it. Maybe has a bit of the Mercedes GT 4-door going on here. Let's talk about the rear design of the EQS. So it's got a light bar. Now, all new high-end luxury cars have light bars. The newest Audis, the newest Mercedes, the newest BMWs, the Lucid. It's becoming very, very common. I love the look. I think we're probably get to the point where if every car has a light bar, they're all going to look exactly the same, and you won't be able to tell them apart. Now, if we look at the rear of the car, there is a lot of space back here. We've got my camera equipment back here, and this is a hatchback, and it's got a cover here to cover it up, which means there's a lot of space here. We've got the scuff plates as well, and of course we've got the buttons at the back here that I can use to put it down, and powered as well. Let's have a look inside the car now and see how much space there is. First of all, these headrests are super, super comfortable. Wow, they're like really, really comfortable. In terms of seating space, I have quite a bit of space. I'm about 1.78 m, and I've got headroom and I've got knee room. It just doesn't feel as comfortable and spacious back here as a Lucid Air Dream Edition does, but there's still lots of space back here, and it's still a very comfortable car. Now, granted, this is the entry level of the EQS. It's missing quite a lot of stuff at the back here. There's no separate climate control zones. There's no USB connectors there so you can charge your phones. There's no screens at the back. So there's lots of stuff missing which you could spec and add to the car. So this is a basic trim level, which is to be expected. I love these lights. To have them in the middle here as well is very, very unique and cool. Obviously, we've got a massive glass roof, and it does obviously come open as a sunroof as well. That's something you can't do with the Lucid Air. And having a sunroof in California, where it's always really, really sunny and warm, is very useful. Obviously, in the UK, maybe not so much, but it gives you a lot of light in and gives you a lot of airiness inside this cabin. I want to be fair, the Lucid Air Dream Edition I saw was $170,000. This car is probably about $100,000, give or take, so it's not as high end. But I can't help but feel a tiny bit disappointed. I'm not going to lie with this car. I'm sure if we went up to the top end model, I'd feel very different. When we look at the interior in a second, you'll see this car doesn't have the hyperscreen either, which is a real shame. Welcome inside the Mercedes EQS. This is the 450 Plus edition, as I mentioned before, and this car has over 300 horsepower, 333 horsepower, and over 450 miles of range from its 107.8 kilowatt hour battery. And inside this car does not have the 55-inch Mercedes hyperscreen, which you can spec for around £7,500 in the UK, and comes as standard on the top trim levels, including the 53 AMG model. This has a very S-Class standard central display and driver's cockpit display, and this is a massive display, and it has wireless Android Auto, wireless CarPlay, and actually Android Auto has the split screen, which is very, very unusual. Big credit goes to Mercedes, because I haven't seen split screen Android Auto except for on BMWs, and those are the only two car manufacturers that seem to do it, so well done Mercedes. In terms of the interior, well, we've got these lovely, beautiful turbine air vents, although I have to be honest, they are plastic. Mercedes, come on. I mean, they look like they should be better quality. They're definitely a bit scratchy. And yeah, I don't know about that. They look good, but they don't feel good. I'm not a big fan of piano black plastic trim. Doesn't matter what car it is, whether it's Mercedes, BMW, or Audi. Audi does it so much. The new RS3 has piano black trim. I don't like that. But this lovely damped door does have lots of usefulness, because there are two cup holders in here, which you can move around like that. And there's a two USB Type-C, and there's also the option of wireless charging as well. So there's lots of space there, and you can cover it up very nicely. And like I said, it's very nicely damped. And then we have this beautiful, nice wide open space here in the middle with another two USB Type-C connectors in there. So you got four already in the front of the car. And we have our big start button here. This is fairly unusual in EVs. Most EVs actually just turn on when you get in and put it in gear. The fact you have to press start is a bit unusual, but it's there, you can see it. The doors are very, very nicely made. Again, they've got the Burmester sound system, and they've got leather and Alcantara on them, and they just feel very, very, very nice. I can't complain about the doors in here. The steering wheel, so this is one of Mercedes' new steering wheels for the S-Class. I'm not sure what I think about the capacitive buttons on the steering wheel. I have no issue with capacitive. I think they're great, but there's 8 buttons on each side. That's a rather lot of buttons. I mean, on the right-hand side here, we've got a home button, voice activation, favorite button, OK button, and little arrows. We've got a volume control, back button, and then a phone dial and a phone hang-up button. Like, that's a lot of buttons in a very small space. I'm not sure that's a great idea. We've got some paddle shifters which adjust the regen braking, and then we've got our traditional Mercedes gear selector on the right hand side, and our blinkers, I'm in the US, right, and our indicators and our windscreen washers on the left hand side. And like I said, the gears on the right hand side. Underneath the big screen here, we have our buttons, which are again capacitive, allowing you to change the drive mode, activate the amazing 360 camera system, going to the electric settings. We've got our car settings, our hazard lights. We've got our fingerprint detector. So it means that if I set up my profile, I can activate it with my fingerprint. We've got a power button to turn off the display, and our volume mute and our volume up and down buttons. So overall, in the middle here, there's quite a lot going on. The doors obviously have all the controls for the seats. We've got our multiple different seat adjustments on these seats, and there's a lot of them. We've got our locks, we've got our window controls. So there's just a lot of buttons going on here. I'm not sure how I feel about that, if I'm honest with you. I always feel like buttons are good in moderation. I feel like maybe there's a bit too many buttons. Again, you'll get used to it. I'm just being hypercritical of it because I don't have a hyper screen. And then the last thing I'd say about the interior are these vents. So we've got our air vents up here. Again, they're plastic. They don't feel very high quality. You know, I don't know. I just feel disappointed with the interior of this car, considering I'm comparing it to the Lucid, and that's my fault. I shouldn't be comparing it to the Lucid. And if you're watching this video and you haven't sat in a Lucid Air, then, you know, I guess that's good for you, because if you did, you'd probably really want a Lucid Air more than a Mercedes. But I'm sure Mercedes, if you go up to the top trim levels, it's a lot better. Again, this is an interesting car to drive, and you'll see in a minute when I go for a drive, I really find it very, very unique as a driving experience. And then overhead here, we have our buttons which control our sunroof and our lights, and, you know, open and close the shade. So all there, very, very, very self-explanatory, just a lot of buttons, but it's a comfortable interior. The infotainment system is fantastic, like I mentioned. Let's have a look at the 360 camera system here. So what's cool about this camera system is I can tap on it and I can move around all the way. This is a very, very advanced camera system. I can see the exact position of the car and everything around it. And I can tap the buttons on here: forwards view, rear view, side view, other side view, auto, and our GPS position, so it automatically goes into that position when I'm here. All right, now let's go for a drive and see how the EQS drives and what I think of it. Welcome inside the EQS, and the EQS has rear wheel steering, which means I can go around in an unbelievably small space like this, over and over and over again. I'm getting dizzy now, so I'm going to stop now. But the EQS has rear wheel steering, which makes a big difference to the maneuverability of this car and to how it handles, because this is a long car, and having that rear wheel steering really, really helps. It makes a massive difference. I was going around in that car park space on a very, very small area. I was going round and round and round and round, and it's very impressive. This car has all the latest driver assistance technology because it is the most advanced car that Mercedes currently makes, along with the S-Class. And that means you have all the benefits you would get from an S-Class. So we've got our adaptive cruise control, we've got our lane assist, we've got our emergency braking. The list goes on and on and on and on. This car is an unbelievably safe car. You can drive along in this car all day long, and if you got into an accident, well, first of all, it'd be really hard to get into an accident because the car's safety features would probably not let you get into an accident. And second of all, if you did get into an accident, then you'd undoubtedly be very, very safe and secure. This is a fantastically safe car. We've got 333 horsepower, rear wheel drive in this car, and we've got a range of around 450 miles. And as I drive down here in Santa Monica in California, it seems like driving an EV in California, where everyone's concerned about their health, is the appropriate place to do it. Now, we've had a conversation recently about the benefits of EVs compared to standard cars, in terms of the batteries require extra energy and carbon to build, the cars require more technical expertise and produce more carbon emissions to build, and then of course the electricity isn't free, it doesn't come out of nowhere. You have to burn carbon to get electricity. Now, of course, I think the idea is that as we move on, all of our energy needs, all of our electricity needs come from renewable sources or nuclear power. I think that's a big part of it. And obviously, as the ability to produce electric cars to the mass market gets better and better and better, the technology to create those battery packs and to create the cars will become much, much more efficient. One thing you cannot deny the benefit of electric cars is, however, is the air. There's no pollutants going into the air, at least not where the cars are, maybe where the factories are making them, but there's no pollutants going into the air when you're driving along here. So it means that our cities and our towns will get better air, and everything will be fresher, and everyone will be healthier, and that makes a big difference to everyone. So the benefits of electric cars not only are the convenience of knowing that, hey, you can start every day on a full charge if you plug your car in, but also knowing that it's right now, at least for now, cheaper than petrol. However, depending on where you're charging, that can be different. And then on top of that, we've got these beautiful, nice silent rides. And in a car like this, a car which is very much designed to be luxurious, this car, the EQS, is gliding along here like, well, like an S-Class, and it really feels luxurious to drive. It's very relaxing just to be driving along here on this beautiful sunny day in California, where it's like 25 degrees right now in January, and we're just driving along. It's smooth, it's silent, even with the sunroof open, it's still silent. And it's just a very enjoyable car to be driving along with. And I imagine if you're in the back too, you would feel equally comfortable as well. I don't think that anybody sitting in the back is going to be uncomfortable. Obviously, as we mentioned, this is the base spec of the EQS. As you move up the range into the higher spec and more powerful cars, including the AMG, you get the 55-inch hyper screen in front of you here, which divides the dashboard up into multiple screens, but it all is a screen essentially. And then you also get, I think, as you move up the trim range, nicer interior features and more technology in the back, because we are a bit low on technology in the back of this car. You can see now we've got the ambient lighting as it's starting to get slightly darker inside the car across here, and also down the side of the doors at the back as well. So we've got a lot of ambience in here, which adds to this fantastic large display with all the technology. Well, in fact, if I went into EQ settings, you can see our current charge, 66%. We've got 240 miles, and our range here is telling us what having the various features on the interior are using up. And we can see our current consumption in this 450 plus EQS is here in front of me. So, and then, you know, I like it up here, I can tap on this up here, and I can go straight back to Android Auto. So very relaxing in this car. So let's demonstrate the rear wheel steering here. So we're gonna do a U-turn. Look at that. How easy was that? This is a long car, and that U-turn was super easy. And now we can put our foot down a tiny bit and see what the 300 horsepower is like. So the acceleration of this car is 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds as well. But it's got the performance, it's got the range. Really nice car. Big thank you to Midway Car Rental for loaning me this car today. I appreciate it. Thank you very much to them. I hope you enjoyed this video on tech in the car. Big thank you to Midway Car Rental here in Santa Monica, California. They've got loads of luxurious and exotic cars as well as normal cars, so check them out. Please give me a like and please subscribe for more on the channel. Thank you very much.